Okay, guys, today I want to talk about failed subdivisions, failed developments, and the opportunities created by them. So, the key takeaway is that you are benefiting from a huge amount of time, effort, and capital that's already been put into the land. And so, I'm going to make a number of points here using places that I've done business in for years. And so, here's an easy one. If you've watched any of my videos, I'm sure you've seen this. Pueblo West, Colorado. To give people the big picture here, Denver is right here. Colorado Springs is down the main highway here. And then Pueblo West is right here. Pueblo is a separate city next to it, just a little bit to the southeast. And this was done in the 70s. The developer did Lake Havasu and a couple other subdivisions that were more successful. And then he went broke on this one, right? There's a giant reservoir right here. And so he was just following the Army Corps of Engineers as they were damming up different rivers, the Colorado for Lake Havasu, the Arkansas River for Pueblo West, and putting subdivisions at the base, right? Because now there's a giant reservoir here in the sunny desert, just like Havasu. So he put in all of the infrastructure, right, to take this sort of raw land out here, this is just ranch land, and turn it to this is a huge process, both with the county and then physically putting in roads and utilities, and a huge amount of capital. And so to find these sorts of projects where it's growing is really, really useful. So that's a key takeaway. There's many of these just sitting in places where there's no demand, and those aren't especially interesting. But in a place like this, where it's a tertiary market to a very, very rapidly expanding metro like Denver and then Colorado Springs, that creates a lot of opportunity. So I'm going to show you several examples, but let's look up close to see what this looks like. So this is a lot I own. I'm keeping this one because I'm absolutely going to build and keep a house or duplex. It's R3 right here. But as we look around, I hope this illustrates the point. We have nice single family homes by it. People own these, right? Pride of ownership. This is a more rural community, but there's huge demand. Nice single family. Again, this is on this side of the street zone for duplex, yet it's mostly single family. And so this just makes it so easy. And I think this lot illustrates the point. Even if you're just buying and selling land, you want to think from the perspective of a builder because that's who you're going to sell it to with this kind of parcel, or the mom and pop who's going to hire the builder to put their home here. And of course, the builder is likely going to be advising them. So electric right here, and it's buried, no power lines. Water line running right here. Sewer line also running there. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure which side of the street the water is, but fairly irrelevant for the purpose of this conversation. But everything is here that you need to build a house or duplex. And so it's a very easy process of getting approval, getting plans, and starting a build right here. I've done it many times. And so this is what you're looking for with these finished subdivisions that ultimately failed and left a huge amount of these infill lots. Now, let me make a couple points here. So scrolling back to the zoning map, a big part of the factors that have made every one of these really successful was it was pretty ignored by the locals. So Pueblo is very comparable to a Cleveland or a Toledo or a Gary, Indiana, where it had been a thriving industrial town a long time ago. Late into the 20th century, as much manufacturing got shipped overseas and those towns kind of declined, became pretty rough. And it doesn't have a good connotation in Coloradans' minds. And so this subdivision over here, which is a totally different place, was done in the 70s when Pueblo still had a decent reputation. And so he named it Pueblo West, and that was a mistake because that word carries a lot of baggage and a seriously negative connotation from the locals. And so all that to say, even though it's right down the hill from Colorado Springs and not too far from Denver, Coloradans mostly ignore it because it has the word Pueblo attached to it. And so not only do we have finished lots close to the growing metro, but there aren't a lot of people doing business down here, and there's plenty of consumer demand. And so I'm going to show you a couple more examples of exactly that. But the point I wanted to make is who cares what you think is their consumer demand? I don't love Pueblo West. It's super rural and it's not especially exciting. I don't want to live there, but who cares what I think when it comes to business, right? I'm not buying my personal house there. Is there consumer demand? Okay, great. And let me give one example from a new construction home we did years ago here that really makes that point on a smaller scale, but it makes the overarching point. There was a lot we were looking at on one of the main roads that because a client was going to do a new construction home and we were building it for him, and he was looking for his lot. And I remember we thought, oh, he won't like that one. It's on one of the main roads. You drive right from your driveway onto McCulloch. The developer named the road after him. There's several McCullochs. And there's no way the client will want that lot because it's on the main road. And what do you know? He comes to the meeting that day as we're doing some planning. He goes, "Oh, I really liked that lot of McCulloch. It makes it so easy in the winter because that's one of the first roads to get plowed." Totally opposite of what we were thinking. It just makes the point of don't think from your perspective when you're looking at real estate. Who cares what you think? What does the consumer demand look like? And if that's there, then it can make sense. So, really important point. A couple other places just like that. I'll show this now because at this point, this is no secret. But when I started doing business in Brunswick County, for anyone who doesn't know where this is the North and South Carolina border right here. Myrtle Beach is right here. Wilmington, North Carolina is right over here. Beautiful beaches right here along the edge. I was just down here actually in the spring. And this is Brunswick County, and it had been very ignored. It didn't have a good reputation, most of it, for a very long time, but lots of finished subdivisions all throughout here where the land was very cheap. And it's between Wilmington and Myrtle Beach, which is both grown like crazy. And they're beautiful beaches, right? This is really desirable real estate. And so eventually this had to more fill in because Clayton Homes was pumping out new homes here at 200K, right? And so big picture, thinking about all the factors, there's all kinds of finished subdivisions throughout here that weren't mostly built out or weren't built out at all. Land sitting dormant for a long time. Yet on both sides, growing areas that got really expensive. And so, of course, this had to fill in. And again, it had the bad connotation, right? So that's the point I'm making where eventually that goes away or people come in anyways because everything's getting so expensive. Consumers say, screw it, I'll go buy and build a house, even though there's a bunch of mobile homes, because it's cheap. It's just cheap. So, this is another great example that fits that, right? It's not a specific finished subdivision. This is a whole county, but there's lots of finished subdivisions that have been sitting a long time within here, just like what I showed you in Pueblo West. One more easy example, Pahrump, Nevada. For anyone that has been to Vegas, there's mountains right here, right? Red Rock Canyon's over here where you can hike up and see Vegas. Uh, you come over the hill right to the border, almost into California, and you have Pahrump, Nevada. And this is another great example. Look at this 318 lots sold in the last 90 days. This was a subdivision done a long time ago. Much of it just sat dormant. It had a very bad connotation, brothels in the zoning code. Yet Vegas has grown like crazy. It's gotten expensive. People wanted more quiet, cheap. A lot of people wanted to come out of California and be able to benefit from Nevada's tax laws. And so this has grown like crazy, as you can see by the amount of land sales in 90 days. That's pretty crazy. If you go to for sale, okay, almost as many lots have sold in the last 90 days as came on the market. For land to be turning over like that, that's serious, serious demand. So it illustrates the point as well. This is a great place to make money, easy to build if you want to build, because somebody did all that work to put in streets, roads, utilities, etc. And so it brings me to a couple more points I want to make that all these markets that fit this sort of archetype have exemplified. And another factor that I've seen consistently is incompetence from the business people there. And so there was huge consumer demand. When I found Brunswick County, I found it simply by looking at those ratios I just showed you of solds versus on the market. And it was crazy. It was like more had sold in the last 90 days when I first found this than came on the market. And this is very competitive now, and this has changed. And I've found really good realtors here. But the first couple realtors I spoke to here said, oh no, you can't buy that lot. It's not on the market. When I referenced a lot we were looking at when we were talking to the seller that wasn't listed. Like they didn't understand direct to seller marketing, and they're realtors who should be doing that to get clients. And the more I talk to people, the more I realize there's no investors. This wasn't on anyone's radar. It's just a lot of, oh, my cousin's a realtor who works a job and then does real estate on the side. That was more the norm, and so just a total lack of serious full-time players. That has contributed to the opportunity in all of these markets. That was the case in Pueblo when I first started doing business down here. All of these places have fit that. And so it takes me to one more point I want to make, which is just the concept of quality versus price. And so a lot of times prime assets get bid up to obscene prices where people get themselves in trouble. An easy example of this in equities would be the Nifty 50, or look at the tech bubble that happened. You see this with really prime real estate where cap rates just go crazy. And so people tend to overpay. Whereas on the flip side of that, can you find decent assets, and especially just for making money, decent assets that you can buy at an ridiculous discount? And so this is an example of that. In 2018, when I moved here, you could buy these finished lots like this for $6,000 to $8,000 on the market. And now, of course, at the time, houses were selling a bit lower, but you could build and sell a house just like this, 3-bed, 2-bath, ranch, 2-car garage for about $250. Your all-in cost would be about $180. Now, anybody who knows new construction knows that to pay $6,000 to $8,000 for the land on a $250,000 sales price is crazy. The land is basically free. And so sure, this isn't downtown Denver or Cherry Creek for anyone that knows Denver, or Golden, but it's so cheap, or was so cheap relative to the value that was there. It created an opportunity. And again, there's lots of examples I can give in all these other places, and there's more failed subdivisions I could pull up that exemplify this, but always keep that ratio in mind where if the market's okay, I don't want to live there, but there's demand and it's fine. But you can buy it dirt cheap. It can still be a great place to make money, even if, it's not Beverly Hills. And so all that to say, the points I want to drive home are looking for these failed or mostly failed subdivisions that have sat dormant for a long time, where lots are finished and ready to build on, yet they're near a metro that's now growing, where it would make sense that the growth is going to push people to that subdivision, where there's a lack of competent players, and where there's a huge amount of value given what has already been done to the land. If you find all of those factors, they can be a great place to make a lot of money. This has made building so easy. I've been building down here for years, and I feel like I'm in my own world where the competition just is barely existent. You call realtors on the weekend, nobody answers their phone, which is frustrating, but if you deal with it, you can make a lot of money. So I hope that was helpful. These are great places to go and learn how to buy and sell or buy and build on land.